of Vav, and we are up to Chavav Amar Aleph. We're discussing Rabbi Tarfon. We're discussing Rabbi Tarfon's view that a keren who trespasses in the Chatzar Nizik pays the full Nezik, and we try to work out a number of different Kal V'Chaimes as a result of that. Trying to expand Shen V'Regel in a Yachid, in a Rabim they should pay, and each one we have a pasuk that limits it to where it is. But now we're up to the Gemara here, about 20 lines on the top of the page, and which is Iboy Luhu. The last word line is Regel. Now we discussed also the concept of kaifer. Kaifer is to pay if an animal kills a person, then you have to pay compensation. So we want to know whether there is also kaifer by regel. If a regel tramples on someone and kills him, does a regel pay kaifer when he trespasses? Because that regel is only in the shus hanizik. Does a regel pay kaifer or not? So Iboilu, our question is, regel shedorsa al gabe tinuk. If a regel trampled on a kid, the chatzar hanizik, in the courtyard of the nizik, where we said before you have to pay the full amount. Mahu, what is the din shetashalom kaifer? So we're up to Chavav and Al right in the middle of the page, and the question here is regarding the kaifer. We spoke yesterday about kaifer and so on. We wanted to make a person pay kaifer as well, which only a share pays kaifer. And now we want to know if a regel, not just keren, if a regel pays kaifer, if a regel tramples over a kid in the property of the victim. So right in the middle of the page. Do we say did have a keren? Regel in the Rishus HaNizik is just like keren. A keren a muad, because a keren takes 3 times to become a muad, and the regel is straight away. But a keren a muad pays kaifer, so maybe a regel the very first time pays kaifer as well if they kill somebody. So keren, even the ovid, today the tlas is in right in the middle of the page. So he did 2 or 3 times. Urchihu, it's common. Umishalim kaifer, you pay kaifer because that's the normal way. By keren, once you did a few times, you already now know that it's very a muad. So hachinami lishno. So regel the same thing. Regel the very first time is urche, so therefore the regel should pay kaifer. Oidilmo perhaps. Keren, you know why you pay kaifer? Because kavanos el hazik. Maybe you know why you pay kaifer, because the intention is to harm, and that's what the punishment is for. High kavanos el hazik, but over here there's no kavanah el hazik, so therefore there's no kaifer. That's the question. The Gemara Toshma coming here. What happened? He brought the shoy to the chatzar of the balabayis without permission. I brought my shoy into the victim's property. The nokchel balabayis. My shoy trespassed and killed the owner of that property and killed him. Hashoy beskila. The shoy gets killed. Ubailav and the bailim bein tam bein muid mishalim kaifer shal tarfon. Tarfon holds a chiddush that even though you don't pay kaifer in the shus rabim, but if a tam, just like a tarfon holds, if a tam trespasses and causes damage in the private property, you pay nezek shalom. He says also that a tam pays kaifer. A keren tam pays kaifer. Now the question is, how does a tarfon know that? How does a tarfon know to make a kaifer? Obviously through a kal v'chaimer. What is he going to use as a kal v'chaimer? So Gemara is like this: kaifer shalom b'tam b'tarfon minolei. Where does he know that from? How does he know you pay kaifer shalom the tam when he goes in the nizik's property? La mishum. On the one hand, you must say, "Hold like we said, glili dom tam misham chasek kaifer sharabim." In the shusarabim, there is a starting point. The starting point is that the shusarabim you pay half a kaifer. Now remember, Rav Tarfon holds that a shusarabim that he makes a kal v'chaimer from regel to tell you that madach regel, that's part of shusarabim. Yet in the shusayachid, in the shus nizik, you pay the full amount. So surely keren that the shusarabim pays half. Surely in the shus nizik you pay the full amount. So we're going to have a similar kal v'chaimer with kaifer. And we're going to say that if you pay kaifer in the shus rabim and the regel doesn't, so a regel that pays a full nezik in the shus nizik, surely whatever payments the tam makes in shus rabim should become full in the shus nizik. And he learns that for regel. Alma, what does he from this? He must include ikka kaifer b'regel. So he must say that regel also has kaifer. He's learning from regel. A regel pays kaifer No, but if since Rabbi Tarfon is learning from Regel, just like he learns Nezik and he learns Kaifer, it must be that Regel also pays Kaifer, and because Regel pays Kaifer Shalom in the Shusha Nizik, this is the Kabul Chayim. Madach Regel does not pay Kaifer Shus Rabim, yet pays full for Kaifer in the Shus Nizik. Tam that pays half a Kaifer Shus Rabim because he holds like Rabbi Yosi, surely should pay the full Kaifer in the Shus Nizik. That's the Kabul Chayim. So that's our proof. Who said he's learning from Kaifur of Regel? Maybe Tonim and Nezikin the Regel Maisila. Maybe he's learning it from Nezikin of Regel. What? Maybe there's no Kaifur by Regel. So what's the Kavuchem that Tarfon is using? Tarfon is really learning more that a Shusha Rabim is more lenient than a Shusha Nizik. And Shus Harabim, your pot for Sheva Regel, yet for Keren, whatever the Chiyuvma. So surely Shus Nizik is much more Chamur. Haraya Sheva Regel pays in Shus Nizik. So Keren, whatever it pays in Shus Harabim half, should pay in the Shus Nizik full. So we're not learning from Kaifur of Regel, we're just learning from the Zikin of Regel, which proves that Shus Harabim, that a Shus Nizik is stricter than a Shus Harabim. Exactly. So nothing, never learning directly from Kaifur of Regel. There's no Kaifur of Regel, for argument's sake. And how the Tarfon learn out that you're paying Kaifer Shalom by Keren is because he's learning that the Shusha Nizik is stricter than the Shusha Rabin. How do I know that? From a Regel. So it's not Kaifer Regel, it's a Zikin of Regel. So the Gemara, no, if that's what he's learning, I can argue and say, Malin is Zikin the Regel, can Yeshna Be'esh. No. If the Vart is that a Shusha Nizik is stricter, well, Eish also has you pay Eish in Shusha Nizik, and yet you don't find anywhere you pay Kaifer for Eish. And nobody says you pay Kaifer for Eish. Well, later on you don't pay Kaifer for Eish. So therefore we see that the Shusha Nizik doesn't automatically mean you pay Kaifer. So the Gemara, okay, what about Mitamun? What about by Eish? Look, Keren is stricter than, let's learn from Eish. That Eish is potter by Tamun, and yet it's chayiv by Regel. So therefore, in a Shushan Nizik, so Keren, which is chayiv by Tamun as well, surely in a Shushan Nizik should pay whatever it is, full damages. Right. So nobody's saying, look, Shushan Nizik, how strict it is. That Regel in a Shushan Nizik, Eish doesn't pay Tamun, but Regel will pay Tamun and Nezik Shalom. So surely Keren, that pays Tamun as well, should also pay in a Shushan Nizik full amount, whatever it has to pay, including Kefir, which it pays half a Shushan Rabim, should pay full here. So again, Malu Tamun, no, Tamun should can Yeshna B'Boy. Tamun, by a boy, if it falls in, let's say, something in a sack that you have no idea what it was, you chai by a boy, and yet there's no Kefir by a boy. So we see that just because that something is chayiv in the Shushan Nizik doesn't automatically mean that you pay Kefir. So he said Mikalim. We live Mikalim. Kalim is potted by bird, and the Regel is high by. So we see Regel is high by Kalim, high by Tamun, and high Nether Shalom Shushan Nizik. So we see how strict the Shushan Nizik is. So surely Keren, which is high in Shushan Rabim, surely should pay everything in the which is whatever it has to pay, even though Regel doesn't pay Kaifer, but Keren does, maybe. So there's no proof that Regel pays Kaifer. No, Malik Kalim Yeshna Be'eish. Kalim is responsible by Aish, Mikalim Tmunim. So then what about Kalim Tmunim? Kalim which are hidden. So you don't pay by Aish and you don't pay by Bird, and yet you pay. And so we see that the Shushan Rabim Shushan Nizik doesn't automatically bring all the Chiyuvim. Malik Kalim Tmunim Sheyeshna Ba'adam. Kalim Tmunim at least is chayiv by an Adam, by a person. So we see that and yet Asian boy are potter from it and so on. So we see that a shus so we see that it's the fact that your Regel pays Nezik Shalom and Shus Nizik proves nothing, because other things don't have kaifer and yet they pay in the Shus Nizik as well. Adam, for example, there's no kaifer there and it pays in Shus Nizik. So therefore, how can you learn from a Regel? How does the Torah learn from a Regel that you got to pay kaifer? The other things that you chayv in Shus Nizik and you don't pay kaifer must be because the Regel taka you pay kaifer as well. So that's our proof. If Tarfon knows that Regel you pay kaifer, and his kavuchem it is madoch Regel you don't pay kaifer or anything in the Shus Rabim. Yet in the Shus Nizik you do. So Keren that pays half a kaifer in Shus Rabim surely should pay the full kaifer in the Shus Nizik. And Lashram the kaifer the Regel Ma'isla must be learned from kaifer Regel Alma Ika kaifer Regel. Shmamra, the clear proof that there must be kaifer Regel. Otherwise, how would Rab Tarfon learn a kavuchem from Regel just because the Regel is chayim Shus Nizik? Other things chayim Shus Nizik, and yet they don't. They don't pay kaifer. Like Adam doesn't pay kaifer. It actually makes sense what you're saying right now. That must be this kaifer beregel. You must say the kaifer beregel because he's like that to the kaifer beregel. The Tanam Shikha saying you want to say what? How, for argument's sake, you want to say that Tarfon learns that Madach Regel pays Nizik in Rishus Hanizik, which proves that Rishus Hanizik is stronger than Rishus Rabban. That's it. Don't do with kaifer. And then we'll go to Keren and say, well, Keren, whatever it pays Rishus Rabban should pay more in Rishus Hanizik. Then Lipruk, let's ask. Mal Zik Regel Beregel. But you can say that what about Nizikin? Regel pays Nizikin in the Shus Nizik and doesn't pay kaifer, and it does not pay kaifer. So how do you know that a Keren in the Shus Nizik pays any more kaifer than what it pays in the Shus Rabban? And Lashmani, you must say mikaifer the Regel Meisel. You must say that according to Tarfon, there's kaifer by Regel, and that's how he makes the Kavachaymer. Alma ikka kaifer by Regel Shmamna. So we see that Tarfon at least holds that there's kaifer by Regel. Okay, Mishnah. Okay, well, for you, Adam Muad Loim, a person always responsible. Ben Shagig, Ben Mezid, whether it was inadvertent, whether it was deliberate, Ben A, whether it was up, Ben Yosef was asleep. Even was asleep and he's tossing around and he breaks Kalim, he is chayiv. There's a machlekes if you brought the Kalim afterwards. He didn't know B'Shas Ma'aser what happens. Yishami talks about if another person came to sleep on the bed afterwards, whether and he turns over and he harms him, whether he's responsible or not. What about Simes Ein Chaveda? He blinded the eye of his friend, the Shiba that's a Kalim, and he broke Kalim. Talking about Shagig, Mishalom Nezek Shalom. You pay the full amount. Okay. Tomorrow says. Let's do the Gemara. It says in the Mishnah, Simes Ein Chaveda. If you blinded, what's the Mishnah trying to tell you here? You blinded the eye of your friend by mistake, and then it gives another example of breaking Kalim. By mistake. What are these two examples? What's the link between these two examples? Dunya the Shibas game, just like breaking the Kalim. Ma hasam nezik in arba dvorim loy, just like over there. Yes, there's damage, or only not damage, but arba dvorim, not four things. Af simes ein chaveda. Same thing is. No, you don't remember we learned before there are five things you have to pay in total. Nezik, tzar, ripu, shevers, and baishas. The pain and the shame and unemployment and the medical bills. So just like when you break kalim, all you pay is the damages. So af simes ein chaveda. So too when you're blinded, your friend ain't nezik in. You only pay for damages of arba dvorim loy, but you don't pay the four things. Why? Because it's done by mistake. So first of all, how do we know? How do we know that you pay other mood loyim b'shegi? Well, how do you know you chay b'shegi? How do you know? Omar chizka chizka b'chintanu chizka makros and pasik petza tachas potza. It says a burn for a burn and a wound for a wound. What do you mean petza tachas potza? It's like redundant. L'chayvay ala shegi kemezik. Any kind of petza, even if we're done inadvertently, or ala oinus karatza, even if we're done mamish ba'oinus. Just like willingly, you have to pay. So that's what we use Petzah to tell you that Adam is always responsible. Says the Gemara, Haime Boile, don't we use this very pasuk, Litin Tsar b'mokem nezik. What about, if there was no damage to the person, you burned the guy's fingernails, there's no damage to the person, okay, so you have to pay him something, so you're paying for the pain. But if let's say you burnt not the nail, let's say you burnt the skin or the flesh around it, so you actually caused the person damage, then maybe since you pay nezek, who says in addition you also pay for the tzar? Maybe the nezek covers everything. What you pay? How do you know you pay for pain while at the same time you're paying for the damage? Maybe it's automatically included in that compensation. Im kein lichtem kra petza bit petza. My tachas petza. Tachas means like an oath or something instead of an oath or something else. What else is there? I'm not tired to teaches you both didn't. Teaches you the idea that even a shegig you're responsible for, and it teaches you also this thing over here that if it's inadvertent, what do you call that? Even tsar, when there's no nezek, you have to pay. Amar Rabba says Rabba. Rabba now gives us a series of halachas. We had one of them before, but a series of halachas. You had a stone in your pocket. There are different scenarios. One is where you had no idea you had a stone in your pocket, so let's put it there. One is you knew, you totally forgot. And so she gets, you had a pebble, a big rock, or a rock in your pocket, but you never knew. Somebody put it there. But Ahmad, you stood up, enough. As soon as you stood up, it fell out of your pocket. And it caused some kind of a damage. So let's go through all the different possibilities. Le'inyan is zikin, if you actually cause damage, we just said chayiv. You're a chayiv. So this is the case of an einus. This is more than just shaygi. This is like an einus, you have no idea. Tosis next daf holds that even though we say a person is always responsible, that's a relative oinus. But if it's an absolute oinus, you have no idea you are potter. You are no potter. And Tosis compares. Tosis says like a shamer. A shamer somebody hires things is responsible if the item gets stolen or if it gets lost. But we'll learn Gemara later on. Lost is almost like negligence. You lost it. Stolen is not your fault. It's almost like an oinus. So Taisus wants to say there's a difference between an oinus like Yeneva and oinus like Aveda. An oinus like Aveda, a person is responsible for. But an oinus like Yeneva, a person is not responsible for. A person is not responsible at all. It's an oinus. But those who argue with Taisus, they hold that like the Rambam. But any oinus in your chayyah for, they bring it right from right here. It says a guy put a stone in your pocket. You had absolutely no idea the guy put it in. This is a real oinus, a full oinus, and yet we hold you responsible. Those who hold like Tracy say, no, you should have checked your pocket before you stood up. This is not 100% false list. You're a little bit at fault. Okay, so regarding the zikin, you are chayiv. Le'inyan abod dvarim potter. But as far as abod dvarima, you are potter because you have to do it deliberately to be, or close to deliberately to be chayiv for the 4 different payments of medical bills and all that. Le'inyan Shabbos, regarding Shabbos, you carried something in your pocket, you had no idea whether somebody put it in there, and you walked out in the street from your house. Meleches machsheves ostra Torah. Torah only answered if you were conscious of what you were doing. The Rabbi Akiva Eger here makes a big, very fundamental statement. He says we have a concept called misasik. Misasik means if you're preoccupied doing one thing, and therefore you are part of something else happens. So here you're misasik walking outside, and you had no idea this is. Why are we calling it meleches machsheves? So he wants to say an interesting thing. He wants to say there's a difference between misasik and meleches machsheves. Misasik we learn from the pasuk, and more Christians will learn ashachot ba. When somebody's misasik and we say you potter, not pshat you didn't do an aveda happened, but we're not going to charge you for it. We're not even going to make you bring a carbon for it. But an aveda happened. A malach was done on Shabbos. If something is meleches machsheves and you didn't have a meleches machsheves, you're totally not aware of it. An aveda wasn't done. You don't have to do tshuva. In this case, here, the stones in your pocket, we're referring to a meleches machsheves. You don't have to do tshuva. And might not come in besides not having to do tshuva. If at the same time, when we say nizik, we're talking about it happened on Shabbos, the stone fell out, you carried and you damaged. We have a concept called kom labor derabbaneh. You don't pay monetary things when you have stricter things. Even if you did a b'sheigig, so you're not going to get punished, the Chizkiah says that you don't have to pay. So if it would be misaseg, we would say kom labor derabbaneh. And avera happened like sheigig, and therefore you don't have to pay. But if it's meleches machsheves, no avera happened at all. You had no idea, no avera happened at all, so then you have to pay for the damage. That's a kivegger. Melech Mashevah means you were aware of what you were doing. You didn't know it was an avera. That's what he's giving an example. Yeah, that's shayik. But you knew what you were doing. Here, you had no idea. Exactly. Here, you had no idea there's a stone in your pocket. Okay, the last example, the Indian Golus. When it comes to Golus, let's say you killed somebody by mistake. Potter, you are potter. Why? By Golus has to be only if it's b'sheigig. It says this is not called even a sheigig. You had no idea that you had the stone in your pocket. When is it a sheigig? For example, you knew the stone was there, then you forgot. So there you're partly at fault. That's a sheigig. Here, it's not even a sheigig. It's like onions. And therefore, you are totally potter. So that's a bit negligence. Make a difference going up over down. Going down is amazing. Going up, there's a person standing around. You should be more. It's still a little bit at fault here. Here, you had zero idea. Somebody placed a pebble in your pocket. You had no idea. Then we continue. Yeah, the Indian Eved, as far as Eved is concerned. For example, let's say you fell on top of your Eved and you blinded him, and we say generally he goes free. He's a machlekes ashbag v'rabban. But here you had no intention. The Tanya the Evid's master was a doctor. Why don't you go ahead and paint my eye or see if it's seen my mistake? He was playing around with it. He blinded him. Or why don't you clean out my tooth or something? He pila. By mistake, he knocked it out. And we know that if you knock out the eye or the tooth of your Evid, it goes free. But you had no intention. The intention was to help him. He was playing with it. He sort of tricked him into this. The Yatzal Chedes. He goes free. So according to Tanakam, it doesn't matter whether the intention was to knock out the eye or not. The guy goes free. And Rashbag says the shichasa, the pasuk says only if you damage achi iskavna l'shichasa. You had to have a mind to damage. So therefore, in this case here, when you fell on the Evan, you had no idea. Let's say the stone. So not you. The stone fell on the Evan. You had no idea it was there. So therefore, there was no intention. So according to Tanakama, still goes free. According to Shbag, you don't go free. Fine. Similar, exactly. What about Hikiba? Case number 2. You knew you had a pebble in your pocket, and you forgot. And then the stone fell out. Let's go through them again. Lenient is chayiv, nothing, no stone changes. Of course, you chayiv. Before you chayiv, surely now you chayiv. Lenient dalad vori potter. When it comes to the 4 different payments, you are potter. Again, you are potter because you didn't really have attention. You have no idea. Lenient golus, but regarding golus, you are chayiv. Regarding golus here, you're chayiv. This is a shogig. This is the case of a shogig. You knew, you forgot. Shogig. Ramakra. It says in Pasuk, Bish Gogo, that if you kill someone, if you kill Makkah, never Gogo, you run to Gogo. Well, this is a classical case. Bish Gogo McCloud the Havli you did. You once knew and then you forgot. Well, Havli you did. Le'inyan Shabbos, regarding Shabbos, Potter, even though as far as Golus is concerned, we call this a Shegig, but as far as Shabbos is concerned, it's not Meleches Machshavos. At the time when you walked outside, it was not Meleches Machshavos. Right? You had no intention whatsoever. Even though we says by Lo Yetzer Machet, a tailor should not walk around with a needle right before Shabbos because he might carry it on Shabbos. But if he carries on Shabbos, it's not Meleches Machshavos. But nevertheless, you shouldn't put yourself in that situation. Exactly. Le'inyan Potter and Le'inyan Eved, the same thing. Machlekes Ba'agad Abban, because you had no intention. What's the story by Eved? Case number 3. Niskaven Lizakstein. You had in mind to throw the stone 2 amos regarding Shabbos. Remember, 4 amos is in a street. You're not allowed to carry or throw 4 amos. Your intention was to land after 2 amos, which means you did no avera whatsoever. But what happened was the Zorik Arba. It went into 4. Now, when we say went into 4, we're not talking about here that you wanted to land at a certain place, and it did land at that place, but you thought it was only 2 amos. It turned out to be that place is 4 amos. That's something else. We're talking about you wanted to land point A and travel further, landed at point B. So and you cause damage. Of course, you chayv. Again, you're always responsible. Linya dalad vorim potter. Regarding over here, dalad vorim, you are potter. Again, because you had no intention to land over there. Li'inyan Shabbos meleches machshavas binyan. Regarding Shabbos, your machshava was to land in the end of 2 amos. Your machshava was not to do an aveda. So therefore, you are potter. And li'inyan golus, and regarding golus, we say asher loit seder. You had no plans. Amar Achmana. So what does that mean exactly? So Rashi has 2 pshatim. In the second pshat, Rashi says you don't go to golus because this here you did plan. This is like almost like a mazid because you did intend to throw the rock. Shaloit means you had no intention. Here you intended to throw the rock. Only 2 amos instead of 4 amos. So it's kind of lemazid according to the same pshat Rashi, and they be a potter. And the other first pshat Rashi is that if you intended to land way before and it went further, it means that's like a shegig. It completely, it's not even, you don't go to golus at all. Because it's not the chiyazadish at all. What do you call it? So either you okay. Inyan Eved. What about regarding an Eved? Is pluk to the Rashbag, but same thing again. It was unintentional. You only wanted to land there for 2. What about this Kabbalah? He's like Arba V'Zorishmeina. You wanted to throw 4 amos. Now on Shabbos, 4 amos is also an Aveda. You're not allowed to throw 4 amos. So you intended to do an Aveda, but it didn't land where you wanted. It went further. Exactly. So the Inyan Zik, of course, Chayiv, again, the same thing before. The Inyan Dalad Vodi Pot had no intention to land 8 amos. But the Inyan Shabbos, regarding Shabbos, it depends. If you dafke wanted to land at the end of 4 amos, it didn't, then it's not Melech Machshavet. But if you said, I don't really mind that much where it lands, since I intended to do an Aveda, the question is only where, I am Chayiv. Then you'll be Chayiv. But if you didn't say wherever it lands, I'm happy, then you are not Chayiv because I wanted to land at the end of 4. My Machshava was not carried out. It's not Melech's Machshavas. My Machshava was it should land at the end of 4. And instead it traveled further, landed in of 8. So as far as Melech's Machshavas, it's not Melech's Machshavas. But if I said I don't really care where it lands, then it's all right. Then because you're right, Al Isa. But part of the criteria of Shabbos is that you have to has to have a machshava, means not only think about it, but whatever your aim was to be achieved. Here, my aim was it should land at the end of 4 amos, and it was not achieved because it landed at 8 amos. What happens as actually if so therefore, if I said kol mokum I'm happy wherever it lands, then of course you chayv. But if I said dafke wanted to be the end of 4 amos and it didn't land it's not melechas machshavas. Says Rashi. But if I intended to throw 2 amos and it went 4 amas. Even if I said I don't really care where it lands, but because my intention was not to do an aveda, all I wanted to go for 2 amas, then I'm not chayiv. Even if I say wherever it lands, it lands. And the Gemara continues. L'inyan golus, regarding golus, I shall say the pratnas kabbalizah abazor shmein. Same as before. The machlekes is if you wanted to throw for it, landed eight. The same machlekes. Whether we say that you're chayiv, because it's like you know there's a shegig, or do we say that you are potter because it's like planned, even though you didn't plan 8 amas? The same machlekes as bagrabon. Next case, this we had before. Rabba said, Zora kli meresh gad. You were standing on the roof and you threw down a keli. Came along someone else and took a stick and broke it. Person B, Shimon came and broke it with a stick. So Reuven is definitely going to break while I was traveling. It was definitely going to break. You hurled it downwards, but Lepoyo Shimon broke it. Potter. Shimon is potter. Why? My time and mana tevila tova. He broke a broken keli. So almost all the Rishonim learn is the moment you threw it, since definitely it's going to break, it's as if it's already broken because basami kara azliner. That's what Rabbah says. The Ramban, if you remember, learned pshat exactly the opposite. He says the Gemara says over here that Shimon is potter. It doesn't say here that Reuven is chayiv. The guy who threw it, why doesn't it say that Reuven is chayiv? So there's the Ramban. You know why? Because Reuven is also potter. Why is Reuven? In fact, he learned pshat and but just the opposite. Reuven is potter because we don't care. We don't look at it how it was in the beginning. We look at it how it was when the damage happened. So how come Shimon is potter? Because it had no value. If you would have stopped it for 1 second and made an auction right then and there, how much would somebody pay? Nothing, because it's about to break it to smithereens. So therefore, because it has no value, that's why Shimon is potter. But really, we don't go after the beginning, we go after the end. So if you remember the movie Yesod about lighting candles on Friday night, according to Ramban, we don't look at it from the beginning as if it all happened in the beginning. We look at it what happened later on. So he has to then deal with how we light Shabbos candles. Because he's saying here that he holds, and Ramban holds, that we don't go bust mikar, we look at it as it's occurring. Right, here's an interesting case. You tossed down a vase, let's say, from the roof. When I threw it on the floor, there was mattresses and all that, blankets, so it would have captured, it would have caught the object, and nothing would have happened because it's soft and it would have been a good buffer. But what happened was somebody else came along the last second and pulled away the mattress. So then, at the time you threw it, it would not have broken. But the poiler broke because you threw it. What happens then? Do we say the first guy's chayiv? Do we say the second guy's chayiv for pulling away the mattress? I called him a silken. The way we learned, the guy himself, the guy you threw from the roof, jumped down and pulled the mattress away. So he did it to himself. Potter, he's potter. He's threw down someone else's vase. He is potter. Why is he potter? My time would be when he threw it at that time, his energy would have stopped and nothing would have happened. What he did later, he's merely a grumma, he's merely a cause. The person who pulled the mattress away, even if he himself did it, he did not have nothing to do with the keli. I didn't throw that's a separate event. Pulling the mattress away caused that the keli now should fall down on the ground. That's a grumma. The Rif holds this is karmi, which means this is a direct cause, but most Rishonim hold this is grumma, this is an indirect cause. Because I'm not doing anything at all. Where's a case of karmi is if I burn you have a contract, the guy owes you $100. I go and I burn it. Now you can't collect without aiding, and it's a big hassle if you can collect it all. So I caused you damage, that's karmi, that's direct. I burnt your star. Over here, it had nothing to do with the vase. I just pulled the mattress away. Let's see, yeah. Let's say he threw a kid down from the roof. I threw a kid down from the roof, and at the time I threw it down, nothing would have. The kid would have died when it hit the ground. But then another guy came, had a knife in his hand, and it landed on the knife. So now, two people together are involved in this kid's murder. This is an argument of who say Rabban Tanya. We learned in a Bryce. We had it before already. 10 people used 10 sticks, and so it's the aggregate. It's not the 10th person finally killed him, but it wasn't. If he would have just been the only one, nothing would have happened. But each person kept on hitting, and eventually the 10th one, killed him. They're all potter because each one contributed, and we need one person to do the killing. It says kol hanefesh. So according to Chachamim, kol hanefesh means you need one person doing the killing. However, Yehuda Seder says that kol hanefesh can even be that everyone is contributing to that as well. Even kol the He says whoever did the last thing, so therefore it says kol nefesh hilin kol duhu nefesh. The guy who finally snuffed out the life of him. So this person who's holding life, is the one who finally snuffed out the life. He'd be the one who's chayiv. Because it's not one person who's responsible here too, because the person who's already killed and this guy killed it, so then they're both potter. What happens if Bashar Kibla Bekar? You threw the kid down from the roof, and the shor came with the horns, and suddenly landed on the shor's horn. So the question is the owner of the shor, and this shor is a muad. So this falls into the machlekes that they have there regarding kaifer. The Nosan pidyon nafsha, he says you should pay the pidyon by kaifer. Rabbi Shmuel says that there's an argument where you pay the value of the mazik or the value of the nizik. According to the Rabbon, you say the value of the nizik. When the kid was falling down from the roof, what was the value of the nizik? Nothing, because it's going to definitely die when it hits the ground. So therefore, since you paid the main nizik, there's no kaifer here. Because what value are you going to pay? You have to pay the value of somebody. According to the one who says that you pay the value of the mazik, so therefore, so you have to pay the value of the cow that does cause damage. But according to the one who says the main nizik, the value of the nizik had no value at the time. And if the Ramban uses the same svara we had before regarding throwing a vase down, that it's the second guy's potter because it has no value. And he brings that these cases are very similar. So this argument, if not opinion, if the main nizik value, I'm say you pay nothing. And therefore you pay. What have you fell off just for case? You fell off the roof. The nitka beisha. You fell off a roof and you landed inside a woman. Yeah, and somehow or another you landed inside the woman as well, and you're in an intimate way. And we're talking about a case where you fell down under normal conditions, therefore it's like your fault. Yeah, so taking a suntan. They're both taking suntans. In this case, because you fell under normal circumstance, a normal wind means that it's like almost amazing. And we said before, dalad dvarim you pay if it's deliberate. This is almost like deliberate. But if you evemta, we learned before that if you have relations with your sister-in-law that you have to marry, even if you did it b'sheigig or your koine, and not in this case here. Why? Because he had no kavanah for intimacy. Here, the fact that he had no kavanah for intimacy, so therefore it's like Kohen the maid, you should know your fault. You didn't have, as far as the zikin goes, you're responsible, liable, but not as far as intimacy to be koine acquiring your sister-in-law. You don't pay for baishas in this case. Why not? Because baishas is only if you intended to shame. You didn't intend to shame at all. So therefore, you're not. It's not. We learned when you chayiv baishas only if you intended. You fell off a roof and suddenly an abnormal wind came and carried you away. Behizik and you cause damage, ubayish and you cause shame. Chayiv ala nezik, a person is always responsible. But a potter bedalad varim. You potter about the other things, like shame and all the other things, because it was not intentional. But ruach metzuya behizik ubayish. What about if it was a normal wind and it damaged and you humiliated? Chayiv bedalad varim. You chayiv not for all the things because it's a normal wind that it's almost like you did it deliberately. But upotter ala bayishas. You potter for shaming. Why? Because shaming you have to have intention to shame. The even this hapich. Let's say as you were falling, now you decide the only way to save myself is to land on that person to cushion my fall. So you intended to land on that person. So then it is you are chayiv. So you intended to land on the person, and therefore, and you'll be shaming him. Even though you didn't mamish have intention to shame him, but this is intended to land on the person. The woman over there grabbed, she saw her husband having a fight with somebody, grabbed a hold of the shame parts. Any day that she grabbed the hold, she stretched out hands. Obviously, she grabbed a hold. Once you had intention to cause damage, you know, intention to cause shame, it's already as if you had intention to cause shame, and you are chayiv. Should we just go to the pedigree? Similar. The last page is all Rabba's scenarios. Rabba said, you place a coal on a person, and he died because he didn't remove the coal. He got burnt. Potter. You should have taken it off. You should have taken it off. But how big that you placed it on his clothes, they got burned chayiv, because the guy is happy to let his clothes burn, be that you have to pay a penalty. So therefore, since I put the coal there, and even though he was standing there, he could have taken it off. It's not his obligation to take it off. I shouldn't put it there. I'm potter. We learned both of them. Aliba, the case of Al in his heart, now we learned is let's say you go ahead and you hold him down in the fire or in the water, and the guy can't save himself. The mace, and he died. Obviously, chayiv, I'm chayiv. But if I pushed you into the fire, I threw you into the ocean, you could have just walked out. The mace and the guy didn't, and he died. Potter, I'm potter, because he brought it on himself. So it's clear that if he could have saved himself and he didn't, even though I'm the one who caused it, I'm not chayiv. But big day, I burned his clothes. But now we learn, if a guy says, rip my clothes, or Shavara, I gave permission, break my jugs. Chayiv, you slept at B'chayiv. I didn't say you're potter, but I'm not sleep at potter. So if I say that I'm not sleep there, you are potter. No, if I tell you if you want to tear my clothes, rip my clothes, but you're gonna have to pay, is one thing. But if I tell you clearly I'm an ass, you are potter. And by standing over here and putting it on my clothing, and I didn't take it away, I never said that you're a potter. Right? I have to tell you clearly. But I say I don't care if you burn my clothes, and you did. You have to pay for it. Only if I clearly stipulate you don't have to pay. So the same over here. Boy Rabba, last question. Rabba asked, you placed a coal on the heart of your slave. Mao, how do we view that? Kigufay dummy is a slave like a person, and therefore he could have taken it off, and if he didn't take it off, it's his problem. Or it's your possession. It's like your animal. And an animal, which is your possession, you place the thing. The other guy, whoever places the coal, has to pay for it. How do we treat an Eved? Is an Eved like your possession or like a human being like you? He's just going to go with them like you, and therefore, if he doesn't remove the coal when he could have, then I'm not responsible. How would you treat a shoy? How the pasha then resolved it. Avdei could go for an Eved is a human being like your goof, and therefore he should remove the coal. But shoy they keep in mind. The shoy is like your money, and you are not, and therefore, if I put the coal, that I am responsible because I should have taken it off. Never put it in the first place. Hadna loch Kates in the regal. That finishes the second pedic. Start a new pedic, new ideas.
This case of
What's it? Have a good